Welcome back to another fantastic episode of I'm Gonna Talk and You're Gonna Listen. It's been a while. So we'll go through some house cleaning first. There's a lot to talk about. And so let's see. The art book is almost completely compiled. The rebranding of the book covers only has one book cover left to go, and we're just about there. There's a couple of future art book covers that are already done. Those are going to go in the art book, and I'm still writing Fanny 2, but it's a long ways off. I think I told everybody that I was going to be scaling it back to like one book a year. That's pretty painful. I understand. But it's actually a pace that I feel like I could sustain at this point, especially since my readership has effectively dropped to zero and my coffee supporters have effectively dropped to zero. So this is kind of the pace that I can sustain and do other fun little projects and keep trying to branch out. So I've got another AI music album coming out. It's a little over halfway done, but it'll be ready when it's ready. I want it to be at least somewhat as good as the first one. That is really hard though, because I did that entire first album in like a long weekend. So when I get those creative bubbles, that's just how it goes. So I think there's a new video, if you haven't seen it, of me mowing with a new 12 amp hour battery. Like I said, I'm trying to branch out. I'm doing tons on the homestead. So I'm just trying to do what I can. Doing lots of gardening, trying to figure out the watering, planting more of them in the ground, since we've officially been at the homestead for a year. And so, I think that's the housekeeping. So with that, let's roll the intro and get going.
Found a bunker deep in the woods. Supplies stacked high, it feels so good. Hiding out neath the leafy hood. Gonna help others try to get through.
This episode is brought to you by... Just kidding, I don't have any sponsorships, and I probably never will. I guess I forgot in the, intro house cleaning keeping to say what the topics are. I still don't exactly 100% know what they're going to be. So we'll just go with it. We'll just see how we do. The first thing I want to say is one of the reasons that I stopped doing a podcast for however long it's been is, and this will segue into the first topic, I promise, is that relatively speaking, like I've felt really kind of calm. Like it's been the calm before the storm, and because of that I've felt really calm. It's an election year, and the cat drama, guys, please not. Oh, there was cats under my feet too. Knock it off. I'm calm and cool and confident and collected. Let's see, 2000. When was the first really dicey election? 2016 was really bad. 2020 was really bad. Now here we are in 2024. So this is like the third election cycle. I've kind of got the rhythm down now. So not really nervous, and so like I didn't really feel like much needed to be said. I was just kind of in my cool, calm, comfortable zone. I mean, I told everybody what I needed to tell them. I thought, I feel like I did, said the middle of July was going to be bad. And I've just been in chill mode, working on the homestead and working on projects and stuff. I didn't need to repeat it over and over and over. Felt like I repeated it enough times, and so I've just been kind of chilling. Trying to keep the homestead going, trying to do the garden thing, trying to learn. So that's where I've been, trying to work on my projects and trying to take time off work. June going into July is the first times I've taken more than a day or two off in a year, maybe. So I was taking tons and tons of time off for myself. And usually what I would do is the opposite. Usually what I would do is I would take some time off and then I would just write like crazy because I'd be so concerned that, I wouldn't get it all out in time. But, excuse me, I was trying to hold back a yawn. But for the first time, I didn't feel like, I didn't feel like I had to get it all out. And I mean, I think part of that is because I'm in the middle of nowhere now. And I don't have to worry about roving mobs, storming down the streets anymore. And obviously there's like other concerns here, like the fact that it's been a year and still effectively getting ignored by all the neighbors, despite my best efforts. But I think I had kind of like a revelation from the help of like a friend last weekend, and I think I get it now that like actually kind of two people. One of them was my friend, and another one was somebody on Twitter who's got a new house, and then immediately started having problems like the first day. They hadn't even moved anything in yet, and so. While in a perfect world, you'd have a close relationship with your neighbors. It seems now I'm seeing that it's a good compromise to just have neighbors that aren't raging pieces of shit. And that's good enough. My friend said something like, you can't divorce your neighbors, or I don't know how he said it. I don't remember now. But the important thing is like, sure, they don't really communicate and they don't really want to collaborate. And sometimes they don't even seem to want to say hi to you or acknowledge you exist. But now, through somebody on Twitter, I saw what the opposite of that's like. And then other people started sharing stories like that whole like, neighbor from hell thing is real. And there's a cat snoring behind me. That neighbor from hell thing is real. And we're so insanely lucky to not have neighbors from hell. I think it's frustrating to get ignored constantly. I think that's weird. I don't think that's nice. I don't think that's nice to do to people. I think you can keep your neighbors at an arm's length without making it seem like you're ignoring them a lot. But I'm more okay with it now that I have, I think, more perspective and I've been hearing from more people. We're obviously still behind. And a lot of that is due to money, and a lot of that's due to resources. But I think a lot of people are experiencing that, where the middle class has been chopped in two, and you have people with low or no interest rate or low or no house payment versus people who have, 6+% interest on houses that are like triple the price they should be. And it's the difference between seeming like you have a whole second full income. Like, if we hadn't have lost our last house, payments on that place were somewhere around $900 a month. Like, we would be up to our eyeballs in cash in that situation, and that's why nobody's moving unless they have to, because even though the job market's like really fake right now, there is at least enough work to where people who are still on, I don't know, what do you call it, pre-Rona mortgage, those people can scrimp and scram and make it on Uber. Well, when we lost our place between 2014 and 2017, I think I've brought this up in prior podcasts, so I apologize that this has gotten brought up before, but this time, this crash is worse than the 2014 through 2017 crash. It just doesn't seem like it because of the Uber jobs, all the gig work, right? It also doesn't seem like it. One of the Life After Layoffs, I think it is the YouTuber that said this. He said they are taking all of the jobs from the Rona. Sorry, I'm fighting off another yawn. That people like retired from or quit or whatever. And they're dividing those into like 2 or 3 jobs, but they're really not like hiring for them. So that is a different strategy from what they did from like 2014 to 2017. 17 was like when it was rebounding, but I still couldn't land one. There were still technically jobs starting in like 2017, 2018, but the economy was rebounding and everybody was trying to get a job again. So it was a little bit of a buyer's market there for a little while. Until obviously Orange Man got back in and like supercharged the economy there for a year. So there was the same amount of maybe what I would call real jobs as there is from then to now. But the amount of fake jobs now has like tripled or worse. There was fake jobs in like 2014, 2016, 17. There was fake jobs. Not as many as now. So like not only have houses tripled, interest rates tripled, fake jobs have tripled. And the unemployment numbers are wrong because nobody wants to work anymore. So nobody's even getting unemployment. Or they're working under the table or whatever. So they've got a lot of side gigs, maybe 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, passive incomes. There's people with up to like 10 passive incomes now. And some of them are like even like retired one way or the other. And I'm not hating on those people. Like, people are hustling their asses off. And a lot of that's why I feel like I can't rest, like, quote unquote. I'm finally like sitting down and like watching a TV series that I missed, and like slowly calming down. But still in the back of my mind, I'm like, I need to be like working on 2, 3, 4 passive incomes at the same time, because if you're not doing that, like, it doesn't take much for like a passive income to dry up. I'll take coffee, for example. Like, well, before that, like Patreon. My Patreon was doing like, actually, honestly, my Patreon was doing pretty decent. It was in my top two, top 3, maybe. It was very close to being my top passive income for a while. But it dried up almost overnight when people started suffering and had to pull their money back, which is totally fine. Like, I get it. I fully accept that that is a real thing. It's a part of the process. So, you know, I switched over to coffee. So at least I could keep more of the money, and then I kind of worked to get everybody back as they recovered. And my streaming alternate income went to 0 and has been flatlined for so long. That used to be in my top 3. Now it's basically 0. So my Patreon went to 0. I switched to coffee. My coffee is 0. My streaming is 0. And those actually used to be supplementing my books, my book, you know, side income. But now my books are the only thing. And I think the big side income a lot of people have gone to is they all just engagement bait with their blue checks on Twitter. And I think that's where most people are getting their money now. They're sure not getting it from YouTube, because from what I understand, and I've been seeing people's metrics, almost everyone's YouTube income has gone to almost 0 because they're not bringing in money anymore. They made the cardinal mistake of bending the knee to advertisers just like everybody else did, instead of telling the advertisers, you need us more than we need you. But instead, get woke, go broke. They let the advertisers run the henhouse. Advertisers don't really know how to create content. They are parasites. And everyone's been farming data for so long. And it's this big symbiotic dumpster fire. So everyone's fighting. Big tech is fighting over diminishing resources. But as the economy gets worse and as everyone's situations get worse, like all of our side hustles get worse and worse and worse, and it's going to eventually choke everybody out. Because I'll give you an example. If you go to Home Depot and get just an absolute basic gardening thing, you know, you need little green plastic spikes to stick in your garden to make something out of, get some chicken wire and make some little fencing or whatever to keep the bunnies out. Everyone says shop local, support local. You go to buy that stuff locally, quote unquote shop local, support your local, blah blah blah. You are paying almost double. Okay? How is that sustainable? How is that sustainable? It's not. It can't be. It can't be sustainable. So what are you supposed to do? Gas prices haven't gone down. Food prices haven't gone down. Side gigs are drying up. FedEx and UPS are going to go to sleep one of these days and just not wake back up again, and USPS is going to take over. By all accounts, the hospitals are doing great. So, you know, If you want job security, go to the hospitals. If you want job security, work at USPS. Or work at USPS and date somebody that's working at the hospital. Or if you're someone at the hospital, go try to date somebody that's working at USPS. I don't know, build a cohesive, strong relationship there for your finances, and then start working on side incomes. I don't know, but like, there's not a lot left. You're not going to be a streamer. You're not going to be a YouTuber or content creator, and you're not going to be making candles. I mean, you're not going to be developing video games. You're not going to be making music. It's tough right now. Writing books, like, no way. The book selling books right now is a huge mess. And that entire community is divided because there's people that still vehemently hate AI book covers because they think AI book covers are the devil. But those people aren't, as far as I can tell, those people aren't creating anything. They're just bitching for bitching's sake. And I retort to them that the big quote unquote trad publishers that are multi-billion-dollar publishing companies, sure, they're quote unquote using real artists, but they are the most awful, bland, generic diarrhea to ever be applied to paper that I've ever seen. And they don't have an answer to that. Like, I believe if you can, you should be supporting an artist, right? You, as an author, you should be building an ecosystem around yourself if you can support it. I got into it with an author once, and he pointed out there's other ways to build your ecosystem without paying for things you don't need. And that's cool, as long as you're building some kind of ecosystem. But these so-called trad publishers, like, what ecosystem are they building? Like, it's not for the love of the book, because that art is never coming back. Like, if you go look at the 80s and 90s and like those beautiful, beautiful, beautiful art covers, that's never coming back. They're not making the book covers that people want. And I know nostalgia, blah, blah, blah. But they're not making the book covers that you want, right? And I don't even know how you'd go about hiring, a cover artist to do that wouldn't charge you horrific amounts of money, which is what the trad publishers could easily do, except they're all hoarding their money. So, to probably buy their own books to boost their own book sales, hyperinflate their own, anyway. So, where do you go from there? Well, guess what's been trained off of all those book covers? AI. So it's like, you can say it's just nostalgia, and maybe we're not addicted to that art. Maybe we were just addicted to the past. Maybe things weren't better. Maybe we just miss it and miss how it feels. So how do you get that back? You just use AI to make a book cover you want, or find an artist that makes an AI that, book cover that you want, and have them tweak it. I changed the color of the dragon from blue to green so it tells the story that you want. Are you really going to pay an artist like weeks to maybe do something that you sort of like? No, nobody's got time for that. Like, commissioning artwork. I've said this before. I used to commission a lot of artwork. It takes excellent communication by both people. And it's a challenge and it's hard. But it's also triple, if not worse, the price if you can find somebody at all. And if they're not going to flake out and be a spaz. Why would you do that? Like, and it's the same thing with music. I listen to these like puritanical artists talk about how, you know, an artist, you know, a musician to be able to, you know, appreciate musicianship needs to absorb their entire life into making music and spend their entire life making music for the love of the music and completely gatekeeping it. And, you know, and by the way, if you can't find music that you like, you're just not looking hard enough. I think that's comical. I've been listening to music non-stop my entire life, so much so that I have gotten sick of it. And I want to make my own music, but you can't switch careers. You can't just stop your entire life and pour it into, you know, digital art or book covers or whatever. Art, drawing, digital artwork, it takes your entire life to hone that craft. Music, I can't, like, unless I could live my life 5 times over, 10 times over, I can't go back over and over again just to learn how to create every type of music that I want. Like, we don't live 1,000 years or 2,000 or 5,000 years. That's how long you would need. There's so many things that I want to do. There's so many things that I wish I knew. I want to learn how to fix cars. I don't have like 5,000 years. Right? But like sometimes I have a good idea for a song and I can't always find somebody to make the song that I want. Or you bust your ass to make the album that you want and it still sounds like shit because there's someone else had a learning curve error, you know? But you can throw it into an AI and you can kind of get the song you want. That's not optimal. But here's the problem, and this is the same problem with art and writing and comics. There isn't a platform that exists out there that I can just say, oh, Fiverr. No. There isn't a platform that exists out there where I can just say, I want someone to make this thing, please, at a reasonable price. Don't tell me Fiverr. Like, they gatekeep everything. Like, big tech has gatekept everything. There isn't a system in place that mutually benefits collaboration. Fiverr is not what I'm looking for. Because Fiverr doesn't mutually benefit both people. It disproportionately benefits whichever one of those people has the most networking, right? If you're making music for somebody and they're just selling your music at 10 times or 100 times the markup, how's that benefiting you? Like, oh, well, you could charge more. It's like, number one, you don't always know. And number two, it might not be about the money. It might be about just getting exposure, you know, and they do that in books too. Like, I almost got sucked into that. Hey, you can write a short story for me and it'll go in my anthology, and I was so happy, and I spent till 2 and 3 in the morning for several days busting my ass on that book, that story, and they were so cruel and dismissive to me, and I realized I was being used. And I think it was an excellent story, even if nobody's ever going to read it or hear about it or care about it, because people are in their own worlds. But the point is, like, I wanted to collaborate. I don't like the idea of, what's that called? Like changing pricing based on what people can afford, even though I kind of do it with my hardbounds. But what I do think is that people should be accommodating their network. If you make an album compilation for somebody and they go play it, and they give you $20 and they go play it for 1,000 people and make tens of thousands of dollars, I don't think you should be able to, modify what you charge them. But I think that there should be some kind of networking option there. Some kind of percentage or some way to network, It's so lopsided. And not even necessarily that whole like rich get richer thing, but it's very disproportionate. And I think a big part of that is because there isn't enough resources to go around. But I don't know. It just feels weird to me. Like, I believe in lifting everybody up, and not in like the communism way, but it's just like, if multiple people like collaborate on a project, the success of the project should bring everybody up. Instead, somebody sits on their network for their entire life, most of which don't even know how they got their network to begin with, and they just milk the network dry. And what basically happens is nobody else will ever be able to achieve it. They do like what they build the moat, right? They get their network so dug in and so far ahead to where it becomes this big self-sustaining thing. And and then typically they go nuts and do something really stupid and torpedo themselves because they just get too power hungry and they don't have pure hearts. They don't mean well. That's a lot of the content creators don't know how they got there, and they're psychopaths. And they end up gatekeeping these vast amounts of wealth that have like no end to how much they can milk everybody with no effort. And it ends up kind of being like being at work and nobody wants to retire. Oh, these stupid kids don't want to work. These stupid kids don't want to work. Dude, you're like 65, 67. Like, why don't you retire? Like, maybe we could go find a kid that actually wants to work. If some of you would retire, maybe. Like, none of this is sustainable for most of us. And you got everyone living in their house, living in their parents' houses, and now those people are having kids, and so the kids and the grandkids are living in the houses, and they're gonna be able to sustain that because they were able to put their bullshit aside, while the rest of us tried to do what we thought we were supposed to do, was spread out spread out and try to build, individual nodes of resources. Which, like, decentralization is good, but you still have to make sure that each other doesn't fail. And it's hard to not look back and just realize that, like, every time you rebuild, you just lose so much time. You lose 5 years, sometimes more than 5 years worth of resources every time, and every time you rebuild your resources, it gets harder. Meanwhile, everyone who didn't lose their resources just gets further and further ahead. And one of the things that I said to somebody is, well, and if you're listening, you know who you are. I said, I stopped trusting people who haven't lost anything in at least like one of the last 3 or 4 crashes. There was the .com crash, and then there was like a crash in 2008, and there was a crash in 16, 17. And there's another crash going on right now. And if you didn't basically lose everything in one of those 3 crashes, then I just can't trust you. I can't trust you, because unless you're extremely lucky, you didn't survive and you've had to rebuild. And I've stopped a long time ago surrounding allowing people near me who don't know what it's like to lose everything. And that struggle of having to start over, because it means they don't appreciate shit like the wildly vast majority of people that I've been having challenges with haven't lost everything. They have tons of money. Their house is either paid off or no interest. They've got family members dropping left and right. And so they're just getting more inheritance crap over and over and over again. Some of them even have multiple retirements potentially. And it's just like, or maybe they don't, but maybe they have someone retired living with them who can watch their kids, or some of them don't even have kids. How do you trust people like that? And it's not because you don't have any leverage over them, but it's they have no point of reference for what you're going through. So it's like they don't have any empathy. They cannot understand. They have multiple cars. They don't know what it's like to only have one vehicle that's breaking down. They don't know what having a house, a proper current, house payments where everything is, interest is triple what it should be in the house. Payments triple what it should be. They don't know what that's like. They've got more money than they know what to do with. They don't care that cars are triple the price that they should be, and that insurance is almost solvent. I mean, look at the roads. Every car has been in 2 or 3 wrecks. It is nuts. Every time you see a car that's been in 2 or 3 wrecks, that should tell you all that you need to know about what society. And then you go and look at one of them and you're like, oh, your car hasn't been in any wrecks. You've got a brand new car. Everybody else is driving old Hondas that somehow survived the cash for clunkers. Probably, I don't know. So, this is kind of a long-winded first topic. And I kind of don't remember what my point was. Trust maybe. Trust trying to build back some kind of financial stability, side gigs, maybe side hustles. I think, yeah, the lack of YouTube ad revenue. I can't remember what YouTuber it was, but I think he said like he shut his ads off. I think it was a guy. Sorry, yawn. I think he said, he or she, whoever it was, said they shut their ads off. Oh, was it urban city prepping? Was that who it was? Shut his ads off and just has the sponsored ad now, but timestamps it so you can just skip over a sponsored ad. Like, it's stupid, right? I feel stupid. After I heard that, I was like, you know what? I don't even know why I'm bothering going for ad revenue on YouTube again. Why am I even trying to get affiliate with YouTube again? Like, what you really need are sponsors, right? But I'm probably not sponsor ad friendly. But like all the gun tubers are having that problem right now. Shout out to Hickok45, who's having a lot of struggles with his channel. I've been a vocal supporter of him trying to get his channel back at least twice now. So this will be the third time. We're always like one butterfly fart away from losing all the gun tubers. And you're like, why are you bringing that up? Because I think the problem is like a lot of the gun tubers have gun sponsors. And I think YouTube is trying to get rid of all the gun sponsorships, which is funny because they can have anti-gun sponsorships, but not pro-Second Amendment sponsorships. But oh well. I think I have exhausted this topic. But if anything comes to mind about this topic, feel free to leave it down in the comments. I read all the comments, blah blah blah. But yeah, this whole anti-AI movement, just in general, I guess I'll end with this because I was talking about AI earlier. You want to learn to be an artist, and I know there's a whole generation of people that are frustrated because they see being an artist is dead. LOL, artist dead. LOL, music dead. Music AI is still very far away. First of all, it can only make a handful of genres, and the seeds don't exist to be able to save the artists or anything, as far as I can tell. However, you're not going to make any money with music. Art. It's funny they've got these programs that can supposedly detect art, AI art now. However, in my opinion, that's completely irrelevant because people have been making digital art for ages. Since the 90s? Since the 80s? How long have been people making digital art for? So who gives a shit if it can detect if it's AI or not? If people have been making photoshopped art forever, what is even the difference? And all these hoity-toity gatekeeping artists, anti-AI purists can't tell you the difference of like someone making art in Unreal Engine versus someone making art in Photoshop, which is indistinguishable from AI now. I don't know, it's just so stupid. Especially when all these AI companies never bothered to include their training data. And it's going to be the same thing with music. You hate AI music now? What's going to happen when every single major record label trains their own AI music on all of their own AI, or all their own music libraries, and all of the major music group? Like, you're going to end up in the same boat, which is supporting indie musicians, but people have been making electronic music forever. You're just gonna stop supporting electronic music? That's dumb. So, like, you gotta figure it out. There's still a place for making your own electronic music and remixes, and this music purist I was talking about started like shitting on like trap music and started like shitting on like drum tracks. And it's like, dude, F off. Like, the whole point is to like make creating music, you know, take the frustration out of it. Like, sure, you could create some new drum track that nobody's ever heard of anymore or ever, but who cares? That's the problem with being creative. You can create the newest, coolest, awesomest, most innovative thing in the world, and either some shitbag is going to copy it that has a larger network than you, or it's just going to fall into obscurity. And again, look no further than Twitter, where you can post a picture or a meme that goes to absolutely nobody. Someone can take it with a bigger network, with a blue check, and they can make a shit ton of money off of it because their network's bigger than yours. Merit is not rewarded. Hard work and effort don't translate into compensation. It's the same thing at work. No matter how hard I work at work, I will not get another penny. No matter how good the project comes out, I won't get another penny. I'm still going to do a good job because that's who I am. But all that means is that I just get taken advantage of more. Because they know if I'm loyal, they do not have to compensate me as much. So what's in it for me to try to make music? What's in it for me to try to make art? Nothing, because you do not get rewarded based on the amount of work you put in. You get rewarded based on what the algorithm decides. And right now, that means recording things in portrait mode. Just so dumb, but whatever. That's because that's what the algorithm has decided this week. So, am I going to keep writing? Yeah, but I'm not going to try to write these huge, massive, epic novels anymore that take months and months and months and months to write, and then maybe one person reads it. Why do that? For like the purity of like writing a book that nobody's going to read? Like, you have to be able to get compensated to survive, or enough side gigs to support it. It's tough. So I've probably lost everybody, but that was all about trying to figure out, financially how to make it in this world when you're dealing with people who don't have to do anything at all to maintain their status quo, because we're in a two society system here. And I think I think authors are in that same boat too. You have indie authors who are struggling, and you have the trad publishers that can just rubber stamp it and pick the winners and losers. But I think there's always going to be a tiny space for indie authors, as long as they don't all eat each other, because we are still writing the stories that we want to read. with the covers, no matter how we have to get them, the covers that we want. And using an AI tool, you can make a couple songs that you want that go along with your story. You know, you can create your own fun little world, even though it's going to be a little janky. You can use AI to make video games now, so you'd maybe even be able to make a janky little video game. Like, you know, I was a coder. I've probably made 4 or 5 video games now. They're kind of janky, you know? Like, yeah, there was a huge learning curve there, but that was always a dream of mine, and it kind of fit into everything. But you can build yourself your own little indie ecosystem now, and there's going to be at least a little bit of a market for that, because not everybody is a brainwashed zombie that wants to read trad publisher minimum viable slop, right? I believe they are going to get replaced by AI, because I don't think anyone has their brain turned on when they read traditional publishing slop. Most of it is just drivel. They're just words that are put together to replicate all the other words from the last books that were put together. They don't tells a story from A to Z as absolutely efficiently as possible, with no growth or development or lessons or any point at all other than to have words to read for a while. Like soap operas or reality TV. Like, there's no lesson there. It's just content for the sake of content. And if you were a multi-bajillion-dollar company, why would you pay anybody for that anymore when you could load all of your books into an AI and just redo it? Indie authors aren't going to do that for the most part. The big authors will. The big publishers will. Because they could cut out the middleman. I didn't mean to say big authors. I meant to say big publishers. Music companies, they could cut out the middleman. Music streaming services, they can cut out the middleman. Everyone's complaining about a little indie using AI, but we're doing that just to make our own little ecosystem. We're not hurting anybody. We don't have enough money to support much of an ecosystem. And those of us that do, try our best however we can. Go look at all the big multi-billion-dollar companies. They're the ones. They're the ones that are going to be switching over to AI. They're the ones that are going to be using AI artwork. You know why? Because they're the gatekeepers and they're the arbiters of it all. What are you going to do when Amazon starts writing their own AI books and has their own AI narrators? You going to come bitch it like some indie person who has most of their book series has only been read by like one person? You going to blame AI on me? When Amazon knows it can cut out the middleman and save billions and billions and billions of dollars? Because they're creating minimum viable product for people who barely have more than a couple brain cells to rub together, who will just keep buying that stupid shit. So, who are you really mad at? You're mad at society for being stupid, not like the handful of creators that are at least trying. So, anyway, that was a very, very long topic. Let's take 5 and see if I have enough energy left to do 2 more topics.
fly by each town like a ghost. Gang lines, ambush us, gunfire rocks like thunder. Roadblocks trying to trap me in, wonder if it's over. Forward fight for saving me. Strong and wild, set me free. On the freeway speeding past, guarding me from all the traps. Siren wheels explode, pirates chase me down. Adrenaline rushing, hear the sound. Heartbeats calm, I fly right past. Tell me to slow, I hit the gas. All my fight for saving me. Strong and wild, set me free. On the freeway speeding past, dodging all the freeway trash.
Welcome back. All right, we want to talk about the Orange Man incident that happened. It's been very hard to talk about on YouTube because I'd say probably 80% of what I type on YouTube gets instantly deleted, which is not the fault of the other YouTube creators. I've seen a lot of other people talk about it too, so it's been really hard to really corroborate like what other people think and feel, although it's all allowed on Twitter, so that's pretty cool. The thing that I want, and maybe this will be like a really short topic, but the lefty-loos have been past the point of no return for a long time. You know, there was the multiple impeachments, you know, and then there was all the things they tried to put him in jail for, you know, then they tried to take his Secret Service away, and then he got, you know, subpar, you know, security. So the point of no return has been passed for a long time. This should not be a surprise to anybody, and if it is, you've been living in the echo chamber. So I guess I don't know. I don't want a boot knock at the door either. So I guess first, you know, I'll preface this by saying I wish everyone would just leave everyone alone. I try to make, you know, I always try to make that really clear that that's the goal. You know, everyone just leave everyone alone. And there's been so much misinformation and disinformation about it that it's nuts to me. There still hasn't, from the official sources, which I don't think should surprise anybody. As far as I can tell, the official sources haven't released any information yet. Sorry, I mean, keep yawning. I'm a lot more tired tonight than I thought I would be. You know, the first reports I saw said that, you know, acoustically there were 3 different rifles being fired, which would, you know, make sense if there were 3 counter sniper teams. However, there's been no independent verification that there was a 3rd sniper team. People are saying there was like the other angle would be potentially from the water tower, so they were saying that maybe there was 2 shooters. There isn't any real evidence of that I've seen. It's all just anecdotal BS. However, that would corroborate where the 3rd, you know, line of fire was coming from. I've seen, you know, different angles of people, you know, drawing little lines on, you know, screenshots of the overlays saying that one of the bullets could have come from the water tower. I don't think so. However, just like with so many other things, it's like, well, where'd that other bullet come from? And why were news outlets saying that there were 3 rifles if there's no second counter sniper team? So basically, I encourage everybody to just do your own research. Don't mindlessly regurgitate what people said. First of all, the second thing is the first counter sniper team was stuck behind a tree. I have seen multiple people misinterpret the counter sniper that had the bipod. He was looking up over his scope and readjusting because he was looking out really, really far, and maybe there was a second target, maybe further out, maybe there wasn't, but their sector was to be looking further out. He was looking over his scope and he was trying to adjust. It's very, very frustrating to me. I've heard multiple people say that he was scared, he was flinching, he was taken aback because he was in such shock. That is all the most stupid shit I have ever heard. And it's just like, I immediately discredit everything somebody says when they say that. These are the most highly trained precision rifle men on the planet. Just say that you don't know what you're talking about. If someone has to look over their scope, readjust the bipod, lower it, clearly there is a giant tree in the way. His scope, the scopes they have are massive. Like, the leaf on the tree 100 yards away probably takes up like the whole... I don't know that for sure. I will never have a scope that awesome, so... but I imagine it's probably similar to a spotting scope where something 100 yards away takes up like the entire scope. So I heard someone say that again today, and I was just immediately stopped. I just immediately stopped because I can't handle it. There's good people out there that just misinterpret things because they just don't know what they're talking about. But the problem is, like, oh, he flinched, he doesn't know what he's doing. But then you've got all this misinfo on like Reddit saying all the stand down stuff, and the guy never fired. There was a giant tree in the way. And several YouTubers have got it right. And I'm so thankful that all of the actual like mature proper military YouTubers, I'm thinking like at least 3 different ones now, all can look at that and know exactly what happened. And then you've got, I don't know what to call them, like fake conservatives, fake gun people, fake preppers. I don't know what they are, but like, I guess if you don't know, you don't know, but then just say that you don't know. Don't start talking like how the news talks. And then don't start talking like you're spending all day on Reddit, because people who don't know you, that just look through a scope sometime and realize that you have to like look up over a high powered scope to be able to scoot the scope around and figure out what the hell is in your way. Like, oh my gosh, it's so frustrating. This is so stupid. I feel awful for those 2 counter sniper teams. It's literally a miracle that the second counter sniper team didn't have that stupid tree in the way. And the bad guy was, from what it looks like to me, was like crawling perfectly like behind the tree, it looks like. So those counter snipers really lucked out, and there was a lot of angels that day. My first inclination before I knew absolutely nothing was that the first sniper did something, and then a second one took out the first one, blah blah blah. But that's like Hollywood movie stuff. Like that would be like it was basically like from a book that I read. I read a Shadowrun book a long time ago where like that's how they would set up. They would set up ambushes with like a fake sniper, and they would screw with their optic on purpose, and then they would have a second sniper take out the first sniper to clean up all the loose ends. So, but it's from a book. That's not what happened. But it's weird that it's been, almost a week, and there still hasn't been an official account of what happened. I think that's really weird. And I don't know why they would keep it a secret unless they just like seeing everybody on the internet spin their wheels. Maybe they're just hoping that something else happens that distracts everybody, but the news cycle's not letting this go. And I credit this not being swept under the rug with the fact that Twitter is not censoring it. So everybody is freely still able to discuss what they think and try to work this out like the internet does. And I think that misinformation and disinformation are think tanks trying to sabotage everybody from figuring this out, trying to wait for the news cycle to roll over, which is probably going to be Sleepy Joe being quote unquote too ill to carry on here probably any day now, and it being like a Kamala, Gretchen Whitmer, Kamala and Mike. I don't know. I don't know, and I don't care. But I think they're waiting for the 24-hour news cycle to wipe it out, and it's not because Twitter's keeping it going. But if you want to put on your tinfoil hat for a second and go, okay, well, but Chance, that's not what's been trending today. So the 24-hour news cycle has switched over. Well, yeah, the biggest network. Well, do I just bundaroo all this together? Maybe I just bundaroo it all together. The biggest network outage to ever happened today. Leave a comment down below if you were affected by CrowdStrike, Counter-Strike, cloud striking. Leave a comment down below if you woke up to a blue screen on your Windows. Part of me would think that, usually there's some big, bombastic thing to cycle the 24-hour news cycle. So did somebody press a button to cause a giant outage to distract everybody. I don't know. It's kind of weird, but that shit happens, or at least it seems to happen on paper all the time. Every time something huge and crazy happens, you got to go, oh, what's this distracting me from? You know, and well, that's going to occupy the entire weekend news cycle. So, but is Sleepy? So Sleepy Ice Cream is taking a couple weeks off. The DNC said they're going to wait 2 weeks before they announce who they're primarying, or whatever it's called. You know, so everything's fitting right together. You just have to be careful. You got to be careful, because as we get closer, weirder and weirder things are going to happen, and you got to be more and more prepared. You got to be prepared for grid down. You got to be prepared for food. You got to trip check to make sure you don't get stuck. In civil unrest, you know, protesting, riots, and traffic. The other thing is, like, I've said this before a lot of times, you have to be, I almost said you have to be situationally aware, but that's not what I was going to say. If someone taps on your car, you have to be prepared that it could be an ambush. And you might have to get out of there and call 911 and say, hey, I'm not fleeing from a crime scene, but someone tapped my bumper and I think they were trying to ambush me. And 911 will tell you what to do. Don't get ambushed, especially if you're a gal and you're alone. People will tap on their car because they want to grab you. You have no idea how many gals are going missing right now in the cities. It's insane. It is sickening and it's disgusting. Last weekend also was like the highest murders in Portland ever apparently, which I am surprised it beat 4th of July weekend so fast. So I think someone asked me what I thought the end game to all that was. The massive civil unrest in the cities, and I think it is going to be to enact a curfew, or the gangs and the cartels are trying to shove each other out, which also would enact a curfew that would benefit them. So I think either way, it's going to be a curfew. It's either going to be a gang and a street racer and a cartel curfew, or it's going to be a law enforcement curfew. Either way, like, the cities have pretty much fallen. The businesses are almost completely gone. Armed, well-coordinated, well-armed gangs are just walking into stores in broad daylight and cleaning them out. And it doesn't matter if there's pictures and videos or not. It doesn't matter. And there's no peaceful transfer of power from the new people that got elected either, which is really nuts. At least over where we're at. And I think if all the computers in the world can all get dumped at the same time, like, how are the election, machines any different? Or if it's not a hack, if it was just a bug, like an update, a defect or whatever, but it's not like we're ever gonna know. Like, it's just gonna be the next part of the news cycle of the next thing, and that's gonna be it. Like, there's no resolution to anything that happens anymore. And I forgot what it was that I was talking about the other day, but something crazy had happened, and there was just no follow-up news article with what the result was. And I almost feel like that's why murderers aren't being caught anymore because there's so many. It's such a revolving door that they feel like all they have to do is just wait a day or two and everyone will have forgotten about it. But you're orphaning a lot of kids and you're widowing a lot of wives and you're widowing a lot of husbands. Is that called widowing too? Whatever that's called. A lot of people are losing their lives right now. And I don't know how that tears the fabric of a society, but gosh, it's just terrible. And I don't know. I think you're going to have more and more people fleeing the cities. If they can afford to, but I think what's going to happen is they don't need to worry about commercial real estate anymore. Finally, we were able to ride through that. So I think remote work is going to come back. And I think that's going to allow people to move further out again safely. And everyone will be able to locate to safer rural areas and get out of the cities. And hopefully they don't take their politics with them. And we'll all live happily ever after in our rural areas, wanting to be left alone. Because if you ask, how are we supposed to stay safe in the cities? They go, maintain situational awareness. And they're like, okay, then what? Well, just don't make eye contact. Okay, then what? Well, just stand, further to the conductor on the train. Okay, then what? Oh, well, no, then you're just going to get murdered because they put people like Penny in jail while there's murdering psychopaths running around. With total impunity. Total lawlessness. And so the news is like not even sharing like 10% of what's going on in the cities. When I tell people, they do not believe me. And the one thing that I suggest is that if you or a loved one has to be in a city or has to go to a city sometimes, or if you think you're going to have to rescue someone from a city, try to find some YouTubers or some vloggers or someone that walks around and records everything that's going on. Because that's the only way you're going to find out. New York has a really good guy that walks around and vlogs everything. So you can figure out like real, true, like boots on the ground. Portland has a guy that does just boots on the ground. Seattle has a guy that has like boots on the ground. They just walk around and vlog everything. And so if there's a city that you care about, find your YouTuber in your area that vlogs, and that's going to be your eyes and ears. Follow them on Twitter and follow them on YouTube and anonymously toss them a couple bucks and say you appreciate them and support your local boots on the ground. Like, that's the best you can do. If you've got to go rescue your son or your daughter from college, the news isn't going to tell you what's going on, and Trip Check might not work. You gotta get those boots on the ground. Sometimes traffic cameras, but that doesn't always help. I don't know. I'm rambling. I feel like I'm rambling. I thought there was a third thing I wanted to... Those two topics kind of blended into each other. That was 3 topics. It just seemed like 2. I think in closing, I'm just going to say, like, do your best to be left alone, and do your best on your little side gigs, and try to look for people that want to collaborate, and try to find YouTubers out there that are actually reputable and trustworthy. And I've said this before, like JH, Everything USPS. He's another great, like, boots on the ground for what's going on with the post office. And he's got a really good mindset, and like those kinds of YouTubers, and his son Abe, who's been posting like a lot of vehicle wrecks with post vehicles. Those kinds of YouTubers give you like multiple points of contact for like what's going on. Those citizen journalists, and channels that actually like critically think through this and try to sift the BS out. Survival Living and Southern Prepper One, and the time is now. The time is now. Vision preparedness. And there's a couple others too. I don't want this to be just tons and tons and tons of shout outs. And Marfugal News has been trying to wrangle as much of this as humanly possible, but it is a lot. It's like, this is like drinking through like a misinfo, disinfo, like fire hose of all of this that's going on, and it's all interconnected. These are all dependent on each other. It's all like one big ecosystem, and it's all gonna crash. And it might not affect you, but it might affect your loved ones. It might affect your kids. Like, it's certainly going to affect logistics. It's going to affect food. It's going to affect electricity. So you gotta... I mean, just driving in the cities is terrifying. Had a coworker that got in a really, really bad accident the other day. And after I had 2 close calls, and I mean close, I mean they were an inch off my bumper and they didn't stop. And they didn't even look, and they didn't even blink, and they didn't even flinch. And then a couple weeks ago, there was someone pushing someone in a wheelchair when it had like the red "do not walk" sign, and a car went flying through the intersection at like 40. And would have wiped out the wheelchair person, the person pushing the wheelchair, and the person behind them. All 3 of them were walking on a do not walk. And how cars are stacked up at an intersection, like the car wouldn't have been able to see them until it was too late anyway. Those people would have ceased to exist. And the person didn't even slow down, didn't even flinch, didn't even swerve, which means it either didn't register or they were looking down and just assumed it was a green light and they didn't look. That would have been like 3 people that would have just poofed. And it was only just through sheer statistics. I don't even want to say it was a miracle. Like, I mean, maybe the angel like stopped those 3 people somehow, but I mean, it's insane. The cities are insane. I cannot emphasize that enough. Just be careful. Be careful out there. Don't get distracted. Literally and figuratively. But I guess I'm going to stop rambling. I know I've talked about stopping doing these podcasts for like a long time, but really I think I've just been waiting for enough to build up for me to talk about. So if you have any topics you want me to cover, leave them down below. I like talking about mindset stuff a lot, but most of my podcasts revolve around me trying to connect the pieces together. Try to, be a little bit of a prophet and a counselor and trying to figure things out. So, I guess I'll end with this, I think, which is, I can't remember if it was Life After Layoffs or who it was, but most people are sticking with their job now. If they've got a safe job, they're not job hopping anymore. That is usually an indicator that things are about to go. So if you got a decent job, keep doing a good job. Look for ways to lock yourself in there. If it's not a good job, there are still jobs out there, just not a ton. And look for a reputable job to scoot over to before everything locks down. I think remote's opening back up too as they look for ways to attract new talent, but just don't get scammed. And there's a lot of really good job tubers out there to help you with that. Job tubing is a big deal right now. And if I just switched everything to job tubing, I would probably do great, but I haven't mustered up the energy yet. But hey, if you're out there and you need job advice, let me know. I can give you job advice all day. But I think that's it. And I rambled enough, and if anyone stayed to the end, then congratulations, and I appreciate you, and hang in there. Don't say anything crazy. Don't do anything crazy. If anyone else is saying or doing anything crazy, stay away from them. And just strive to be left alone. And the only way we make it through this is together. And like, subscribe, and buy my books. And I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Faces lost in shadows deep, dreams that crumble, fight to keep. Homeless souls in the night, under stars, no guiding light. Battles fought in silent wars, desperate hearts behind closed doors. Save us.